Welcome to Let's Talk Global Business, the show in which we look at the economic and business trends connecting the world. I'm Sarah Murray, Managing Director International at the Conference Board, the member-led global think tank that delivers trusted insights for what's ahead. Today, we're looking at how CHROs in Asia and Europe are preparing for the year ahead. On the surface, the differences between the two regions are stark. Asia's labour markets are often perceived as marked by rapid economic growth, technological advancement, and a young, increasingly skilled workforce. In Europe, on the other hand, businesses face an ageing population, high levels of regulation, and declining productivity. But do these characteristics hold true, and what are the implications for CHROs as they look to increase the competitiveness of their workforce in 2024? I'm talking to Jean-Marc Verbist, our Centre Leader for Human Capital in Europe, and Sandhya Karpe, our Centre Leader for Human Capital in Asia. Jean-Marc is the former CHRO of Degroof Petercam, one of Belgium's largest private banks. Sandhya, meanwhile, is former Managing Director at Duke Corporate Education in Singapore, after an academic career that included time at Wharton School of Management in the United States. Jean-Marc and Sandhya, welcome to Let's Talk Global Business, and thank you for participating today.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
So, Sandhya and Jean-Marc, let me begin by asking whether you think that the picture of Asian and European labour markets that I just painted remains true and perhaps even relevant to CHROs in 2024. Is that how they would see the landscape they are facing? Sandhya, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Like Europe, Asia is often painted with one big broad brush. The fact is that it is actually a rich mosaic of interesting cultures, religions, languages, demographics, and of course, business contexts. In general, Asia comprises several growth markets for many multinational companies, but we are also currently impacted by the global slowdown. And companies must drive growth in the context of tight controls and budget constraints. The demographics across the region also are quite varied. So, we see, for example, fast aging populations in countries like Japan, which will probably be the most aged economy soon in the world, South Korea, China, Singapore, whereas we are also seeing growing younger populations in countries like India, Indonesia, and the Philippines. So basically, we're seeing a lot of divergence, not just in the business context, but also in terms of some of the challenges and opportunities that companies in the region face as a result.
Interesting. Thank you, Sandhya. Jean-Marc, what would you say?
Yes, absolutely. The three elements you mentioned were totally true. So aging population, regulation, and productivity decrease. But I would add three additional elements in that context. In Europe, the rapid pace of the digital transformation and AI, of course. The global labor shortages, for sure. And the third one, a big push in Europe, the sustainability.
Sandhya and Jean-Marc, you've both recently authored reports on what CHROs are prioritising in 2024. So let me ask you both about those reports. Let me start with you, Sandhya. What would you say were the quick take of the top three priorities for CHROs in Asia in 2024?
We've been having some really great conversations with CHROs across the region, many from our own conference board networks. And three things are really standing out for us in the region. So the first is CHROs are increasingly being expected by their CEOs to be drivers of growth and contribute directly to both the top and the bottom lines. So, in terms of top line growth, they are expected to drive this through higher productivity and engagement, and also to get by getting the right talent that can add value and drive innovation. And from a bottom line perspective, they are being asked to manage staff costs through creative talent deployment strategies and also develop talent agility, which gives them the ability to move talent around, to support the growing and the changing needs of the business. So these are some of the things that we are seeing. In addition, there are other things that are becoming increasingly important, including curating a very positive and meaningful employee experience, along the whole spectrum of the employee's journey across the organization. D&I continues to be a strategic priority. And then, of course, artificial intelligence, like just like other parts of the world, is gaining importance in Asia as well.
Interesting, Sandhya, that what you've just outlined, and that CEOs are clearly seeing the CHRO as much more strategic partnerships, and as partners to really deliver that bottom and top line growth. Has the role of the CHRO evolved in Asia? Since you've been the Human Capital Centre leader, and how do you see that continuing?
So Asia has been kind of lagging behind over the years from the West in terms of just the importance and the status of the HR function, within the entire organization. But I'm really pleased to see that this is really changing now, and more and more we are seeing CHROs gaining greater and louder voices in the boardrooms and in the C-suite, and being expected to be more connected with the business. So we are also seeing a new breed of CHROs who are speaking the business speak and really managing HR and leading the HR function through the lens of the business. And I think this is what is expected from them. We are also finding that the C-suite and board conversations are centered a lot around people and around talent, because talent is seen to be one of the key differentiators for the business.
Excellent, thank you, Sandhya. And Jean-Marc, obviously you've heard from Sandhya. If we think just about talent, how do you think CHROs are thinking about talent in 2024?
Yes, well, we have made as well in Europe a study around the key priorities for the CHRO in Europe, based on our survey at TCB, but also from other players in Europe in the human capital field. And indeed, talent management is one of the three priorities that CHRO have. So really maturing these talent strategies. And more, in fact, we are going beyond what we call the high potential or emerging leaders. We are looking at other segments, because in fact everybody has a growth potential, and the maturity of HR processes should be measured by the fact that we can tackle every potential in every employee, not only the high potential. And more we see other segments being analyzed, like the experts having a strong impact, of course, on the revenues of the companies, but as well the contingent workers. Those people are representing sometimes 20, 30, even 40%. And the question is how HR and CHRO are tackling the talents within the contingent workers. So, and in a way, we see as well that there is a strong focus for CHRO to work with the C-suite, to co-develop with the C-suite members the talent development solutions together, to make sure that there is a fit, to make sure that the C-suite and the leaders are behind the talent management and the solutions they are putting in place in companies. And I join a bit Sandhya, if I may complete my answer about the evolution of the CHRO. I mean, this is for me one of the function evolving the most in the C-suite, because well, there is talent shortages, and you have the CEO looking at the CHRO to develop human capital strategies to meet the ambitions, but there is also the board, the investors, and the regulators. All four of them are looking the CHRO with an impactful talent management strategy, with regular spots at the board to present the strategy, and also with regular updates on this talent management strategy.
Interesting, the shift. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Sanjay, just again, keep building on the talent question. Do you see innovative strategies that are in place to tackle the skills gap?
Yes, absolutely. We are seeing a lot of creativity in talent, the whole talent management and acquisition space. And I agree with Jean-Marc that talent, just like in Europe, is a key strategic priorities, not just for CHROs, but for CEOs of the company. Because I think there is a very strong realization that as companies pivot towards new markets, new strategies, new products, it's really important for the talent to also be aligned and be able to support these initiatives very, very quickly and effectively. So there are some interesting observations that we have made here. First of all, I think the context is important to understand, and that is in Asia, just like everywhere else. Uh, CHROs are expected to build the right talent and have the right talent in place in the context of very, very stringent cost controls and budgetary constraints. Now that really unleashes a lot of creativity, because we are finding that CHROs are now exploring very new and unconventional sources of talent. So as Jean-Marc said, contingent workers, which is a growing breed in Asia. We are seeing more and more people, not just at junior levels, but even at senior levels in the organization, opting for portfolio careers. They're rejecting this whole 9 to 5 workism, and really wanting careers which give them more flexibility. So that presents a huge opportunity for companies to really embrace this segment. So that is one. The other thing that we are seeing really accelerating is internal talent mobility. So how do you retain employees? And just as career management and learning and development and challenging opportunities become important for employees to remain in organizations and to remain engaged, companies are curating some very interesting career pathways for their employees that enable them to be excited, to be enthusiastic with continuing to work with the company. And that really includes even sometimes, deployment of internal talent marketplaces, which are AI driven. Now that of course requires a lot of investment, but, we're seeing a lot of innovation, in the talent space. And as I said earlier, also curating a very positive employee experience, which starts with, the selection process. How is an employee treated during an interview? To what does the onboarding look like? What does that whole journey look like? What is the career prospects that the employee has? So I think people are also becoming much more demanding about having good experiences within the company, and they are less tolerant of poor experiences. So I think CHROs and their teams are responding very, very positively to this.
I think it's a really interesting point that you make about, increasing expectations, from the employees, and how, striking the right balance to manage those expectations between the leader and the employees is really going to be critical. So, it's an interesting one to watch. Just building again, you talked a little bit about AI, Sandhya. Jean-Marc, how, I suspect that there's a huge amount of excitement, and there's also discussion about the risks to do with AI. But what do you pick up when you're talking to European CHROs about what they're thinking about the pros and the cons of AI?
Absolutely, and that's a big topic. And if I joined a bit the question around the priorities of CHRO, this is one of the top 3 priorities for CHRO in Europe.
Mm.
There is a lot of excitement and relatively positive. So according to recent survey we have done at TCB, the conference board, we see that CHRO think that it will help more than it will hurt the business. They are very enthusiastic, in fact, about AI deployment in the organization. They think it will increase the productivity, the innovation, the creativity, and the employee engagement. And we know that more and more the employees are using AI in their current jobs. More than 50%, certainly, we are currently using that. We know as well that the marketing functions are leading the way in terms of strategy using AI, and the other functions are as well following the trend. But there is a concern from the employees on the use of AI. They are concerned about the fact that their job could be simply cancelled, totally changed. And we are now looking at the HR function to come with a sort of communication plan on how AI will be deployed into the organization, and a sort of training and development strategy to help employees to be more skilled and to use that as a positive tool.
Mm.
And at the same time, linked to the concern, there is as well, as you mentioned, Sarah, the risks. There is, some concerns regarding the ethical deployment of AI into the company. And we are looking at HR on what are those ethical guidelines we should have in the organization.
Mm.
Regulation is coming. We are looking also at HR to see, okay, or how are we going to match the regulation coming on AI? So HR should in fact work in collaboration with legal department and audit departments to develop a governance around AI. And more, according to what we see and according to the survey we have done, the CEOs are looking to the CHROs to come with strategies on AI in 2024 because it is linked to the work transformation. It is linked to the reskilling, upskilling of people. We have to combat the bias coming from AI, and we have to build a robust AI governance. So that's a huge challenge, which is there and which will become more and more mature. But one of the top three priority, I think, of the CHROs in Europe.
It's almost like, benefiting from the gains that you can get from AI, and at the same time accelerating that upskill and reskilling strategy so that you can redeploy people, into areas that the business also needs. So how do you get the best from both? Is something that's going to be top of their agenda, I
Yes.
think, for many months
And
ahead.
absolutely, and more than 90% of the CEOs are really looking at a reskilling and upskilling agenda linked to
Mm,
AI. So that's a immense majority of CEOs looking at CHRO to come with a strategy on
yeah,
on that.
yeah, indeed. Sandhya, if we just shift gears a little bit, to think about DEI and well-being, key area for the CHRO. How do you see initiatives being prioritised by CHROs in Asia?
Let me start with well-being first. I think what we are seeing here is CHROs now going beyond the conventional well-being offerings such as yoga, meditation, happy hours, to more of a holistic and integrative approach to the well-being strategy. I think well-being is rising to the top as a key priority for employees. Asia has among the longest working hours anywhere in the world. Singapore, I think, has the longest. And so burnout, fatigue, just because of work overload is really very, very real. And now, with cost cutting in the context of layoffs in many industries, we are expecting the same people to do more work. And that is not something that is sustainable over a long period of time. So, what is coming to the fore in terms of well-being strategies is focus more on energy management. So, a lot of programs around enabling employees to really manage and conserve their energies, so that they are well equipped physically, mentally, emotionally to tackle the challenges that are faced. So I think there is, it's really nice to see a growing recognition among the leadership of companies that it is important for employees to be well, to perform well in their roles. And companies are taking ownership of employee well being. So, one of the things that we are seeing a lot of is building, for example, inclusive cultures, work cultures where people feel respected, they feel valued, where leaders and managers are respectful of their boundaries. There's a lot of work being done around unconscious biases, psychological safety, enabling employees, especially at junior levels, to speak up, speak their mind, stand up for themselves when it's needed, because these are really the stress triggers, that lead to well-being issues. And Asia, being hierarchical in many, many countries across the region, very often employees who are lower in the power structure may not feel empowered to speak their minds or stand up to people who are in positions of authority. So a lot of work is being done with junior employees in the organization, really empowering them to express themselves more, so that, and to be authentic, so that leaders can understand what they are facing, and they can be more proactive about addressing very acute challenges related to well-being. On the DNI side, gender, as anywhere in the world, has been one of the first issues that any company chooses to tackle from a DNI perspective. And that has been, in fact, the longest run that most companies have had in their DNI agendas. In fact, at one time, gender was the only thing in the DNI agenda. But it has still continued to be important because it has proven to be a very tough nut to crack. in Asia. There is, and it continues to dominate D&I agendas. Gender equity in Asia, inequities are very acute, especially due to challenges of what we call triple and double burden, which is not just looking after your children, but sometimes living in generational families where you're also responsible for your elders. And so, that it really takes its toll. COVID has created a huge setback for women all over the world. Asia is no exception. And working from home has meant working at home also, because the roles are not divided equally. So there is a lot of work still to be done on gender. The leaky pipeline, which is women dropping out at mid levels in their career, continues to be a challenge. And the very small number of women in leadership positions is also something that companies continue to tackle. However, what we are seeing is the lens on DEI has become wider, and it's not gender alone, but there are many other aspects of D&I that CHROs are focused on, including LGBTQ inclusion, which is a challenge in many countries. Sometimes there are laws that are really not in favor of LGBTQ inclusion, disability, neurodiversity. And so here again, unconscious bias training, psychological safety training, as well as building ERGs, employee resource groups, that will support specific segments which are underrepresented, are being floated and supported by organizations. Manager coaching to pick up distress signals, so that even if people are not expressing themselves, the managers have the ability to be proactive and address challenges before they fester, and employees sometimes just very quietly exit the organization and you don't even know what has happened. So we are seeing a lot of very proactive work being done in D&I as well as in well-being, which is really a very, very positive trend.
Fantastic, Sandhya. I mean, it does sound that all of the initiatives, are obviously very welcome within the region, but indeed ensuring that they're well balanced, ensuring that they're inclusive, and avoiding that, cancel culture, I think is something that needs to be addressed as well. So we've just covered a lot of ground. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation on what this topic is about, with a closer look at productivity, remote work, and ESG.
Are you ready for the future of business? This year we are launching our international conference series. Curious about emerging trends for rewards globally? Join us June 20th to 21st in Brussels for Future Reward Europe. Want to understand how partnering can help with the war for talent? Save your seat July 4th to 5th for Future Skills Asia in Singapore. And finally, tap into the power of ecosystems at Future, Innovate and Transform, November 13th in Amsterdam. You can find details on the programme at conference-board.org/conferences. Join us to get inspired, gain actionable solutions, and connect with global peers.
Hello and welcome back to this conversation with Jean-Marc Verbist and Sandhya Karpe, exploring 2024 priorities for CHROs in Europe and Asia. Let me start by asking you, Jean-Marc, some similar questions. How have you seen the role of the CHRO change, in the past couple of years?
Yes, that's as I said previously, an interesting question, because for me there has been a big evolution of this function. The combination, of talent shortages, productivity decrease, and technology impact make that, in fact, this function has a lot to deliver now. And if you add on that the fact that we have more and more the sustainability agenda with the ESG, and the S of the ESG is putting a lot of focus as well on the HR function. So there is a very interesting time for the CHRO. For me, as we said previously, with the I would say the expectation from the board, from the investors, regulators, and of course the CEO, this function has a lot to do. And in fact, this is a fantastic opportunity for
Mm.
CHRO today. They have really the landscape to influence, to impact, and to deliver. And they need absolutely to have a spot at the board to present their strategy and to come back with regular updates. So, but this makes that this function is just fantastic, I think, in this time.
Nothing but good things, indeed. You talked about productivity. So, there is an issue in Europe. We have declining productivity. What's the CHRO doing to increase productivity? What are you seeing from the people that you're talking to?
Yes, and there we feel a big tension because
Mm,
the CHRO should manage the short-term deliveries, reducing the having labor savings and reducing the costs, of course, on short-term basis. But they should balance that with growth investment, which are of course medium long term. And there is really a discussion to have between the CEO, the CHRO and the C-suite about what are the drivers of the productivity. We know those are related to technology, to innovation, to capital, but also to people. And we should be clear at the C-suite that there is need of investment on people that are more medium long term. And according to a recent OECD report, we see that 1/3 of the productivity gap between top performing companies and medium performing companies are linked to the human side of productivity, meaning the quality of the leadership, the balance, the well-being, and all those topics, all those skills topics that we have to manage. So there clearly investment in leadership, investment in development and well-being are proved to be essential for the productivity at medium term.
indeed. The way of working also has an impact, right, on productivity, and the hybrid world, is here to stay. But how are you observing, those hybrid environments and the effect on collaboration? Because that is also, a driver of results, and it's linked to productivity. So what do you see there?
Yes, that has been a big topic of discussion between the CEO and the CHRO, and more we see, as you clearly mentioned, Sarah, this is here to stay.
Mm.
Hybrid is here to stay. The C-suite leaders are recognizing that a lot of time and energy has been spent debating on the issue, but in fact, this has been a lot of distraction. Now we are looking at the CHRO to make it work. And in a way, this has changed indeed completely the way people are leading the teams, and putting a clear focus on a new type of leadership. Leaders that are able to, to create connections, belonging, collaboration in this new setting. And indeed, more and more, and we see with the multiple generations at work, that we need more and more human-centric leaders that are much more authentic, much more giving importance to empathy, much more delivering bottom up than top down. And this is through this development of the leaders that will be able, I think, to make impact in the hybrid, and still delivering and still creating the collaboration we need to deliver.
I think it's really interesting, Jean-Marc, and I'm just thinking about the point that you made earlier, Sandhya, about employee expectations on the rise. And here's a key example, right, where employees, some would not want, don't want to come into the office, or maximum want to come in 1 day a week, where employers would like 2 to 3 days a week. So this is an example of, how do you strike the right balance? Because the CHROs and the business leaders, they want a good culture. They want people to feel safe, and they want people to be able to collaborate and talk. And then employees, may have a different view on that. So how do you see HR leaders kind of managing that balance, or optimizing, remote work, to ensure that, you can still get that collaboration, you can still maintain the culture, you can still create psychological safety within that environment?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I agree with everything that John Mark has just said. What we are seeing in Asia is that hybrid work, like everywhere else, continues to present challenges of communication, coordination, and sometimes, cultural immersion, right? It's really hard for people over Zoom calls to feel connected with the culture and bond as a team. However, like you said, the genie is out of the bottle and it's not going back in ever, I think. And so, in countries across Asia, especially ones which have a growing younger populations, we are seeing that there is a very, very clear expectation that flexibility is provided by employers. And we are finding that even in conversations and interviews, the interviewee is asking these questions to the interviewer about, what does your hybrid model look like? How many days can I work from home? So this does seem to be a very important factor for younger people, even over, money and compensation. So I think whether we like it or not, this is a phenomenon that is here to stay, and therefore CHROs need to find a way to strike that right balance. So, in terms of remote work, I think companies are investing quite significantly in home infrastructure, providing people with ergonomical home infrastructure. They've also gotten into office redesign, creating more collaborative spaces, a fun environment where, people actually feel like coming to work. So, creating more of that pull versus saying to people that they have to show up. So, how do you create that draw where people feel that coming to the office really gives them something different that they can't get from working remotely? We are also finding that when they come to the office, there is more of a focus on collaborative work. We don't want people coming in and then, just being hunched behind their laptops. They can do that from home. So there's a lot of emphasis on using the time in the office to collaborate, to come up with those creative ideas, to build relationships, and that really, is the focus. Another interesting thing that we are seeing is also satellite co-working spaces. So in big metros like Mumbai, Delhi, Jakarta, where commuting is really hard for people to come to the office, there are some companies that have chosen to invest in small satellite offices, hubs based on where many of their employees are located. So that's another way to say we can give you a little bit of the office experience, but we're going to save you the time and the energy on that long commute and spending all that time in your traffic, which is unproductive. So we are seeing some creativity that is coming out there. But we do have legacy. Mindsets and cultural biases that impede this real, very sort of meaningful rollout of the hybrid work model. For example, in Asia, there is a very strong presenteeism bias.
Mm.
In Japan, for example, the government to drive gender equity has created policies that favor women in the workforce. For example, they have extended maternity leave, paternity leave for men who want to support their wives, at home during, the birth of after the birth of the baby. However, they found that many of these men don't actually avail of this leave because of the presenteeism bias that their bosses still hold, and they are worried that they might be seen as not being committed enough, or may be passed up for a promotion and things like that. So I think in Asia we have a lot of work to do, also from a mindset perspective, to make sure that the policies that are rolled out are supported in parallel with a change in thinking as well.
It's also that link again, Sandhya, to if the psychological safety, then someone in Japan would feel okay to go and take that paternity leave because it wouldn't be detrimental, to the career. So clearly, still a lot of work to do for people to feel safe, that they can really express what they would like and who they are. So, yeah,
And I
start of
think,
the
I think,
journey.
Sarah, that is indeed something we see as well in Europe. Even
Hmm.
maybe if the culture is a bit different, but we see clearly that phenomenon as well in Europe, where you have the management in place physically in the buildings, and the workers and the employees working at home, and then there is this balance. Sometimes being present at work is considered as being, I mean, a must
Yeah.
if you want to make a career. So there is as well this phenomenon
Yeah.
But I think that in general, the rules should be clear, and we should make sure that they are followed,
Yeah.
because there is the tendency to, yeah, to have some exaggeration here and there. So to make it work, rules should be clear, and we should make sure that we follow them.
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. We're coming to the end, of this conversation, but I did just want to touch with Sandhya and Jean-Marc, anything that you have to add about how CHROs are integrating ESG strategies. You've talked about how important, sustainability is and how that's part and integrated, with the CHROs' expectations and roles. But what do you see happening and changing?
Well, clearly, there is a big sustainability agenda in every corporation, and the CHRO is clearly part of the governance, because they have to manage the S of the social ESG. Sometimes we see as well CHRO having the full responsibility on sustainability, moving that into the organization, because there is a big component around the social part. So we see a bit a combination of the both, I would say. But again, as it is extremely important, again, a lot of additional responsibilities to be put on the shoulders of the CHRO at this time.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Sandhya, any comments from Asia?
Yeah, sure. So I think it started out with CHROs being asked to drive the ESG agenda of the company. And to begin with, it was confined to the environment, and looking at sustainability from that lens. But we are finding now that the lens has widened quite a bit. And CHROs are actually thinking about people as a very, very central part of the entire ESG strategy. And there are three areas that they're focusing on. The first is well-being, right? You need to have a sustainable workforce, a workforce that is healthy, that is thriving, in order for business continuity. And so, how do you invest in people so that they remain engaged, they remain healthy, and they're able to be productive and contribute effectively to the strategy and the goal and the objectives of the company? So that's the first thing. And that includes D&I, it includes, mental health, physical health, and all of those things. The second thing is technology. So, how do you create that balance between leveraging the great power of technology, whether it's AI and all the generative AI and all the new technologies that are emerging, but at the same time, maintain that sort of balance with human interaction? And I think increasingly there is a focus on not just using technology as a way to reduce costs, but also responsible, deployment of technology. How do you proactively think about what the impacts of technology could be on your people, but also think about how do you help people to really take their productivity to the next level leveraging technology? And that is a challenge in itself. So it's not just becoming comfortable with technology, but actually mastering technology so that you can take your performance, to the next level. So we have begun actually on that journey here in Asia. There are a few companies that are doing some great work, and in fact, the conference board is going to be launching a study on this very topic of AI automation and how can you proactively, make sure that the outcomes of technology deployment are actually very, very positive on employees and not just negative in terms of labor displacement. And the third thing that we are seeing is what John Mark talked about is upskilling and future skilling. So if your workforce has to remain relevant and it has to remain productive, you must make sure that they have the skills they need to prepare for the challenges of the future. And a lot has changed, and the skills that are relevant today will not be relevant in another 5 years, even. And so the company has to be on a continuous and a very aggressive journey of upskilling, reskilling, and that has got to be baked into the strategic workforce plan of the organization. And the good news is that employees are very, very willing now to raise their hands for challenging assignments. They do realize that relevance is important, and they're very much looking forward, to their employers to assist them in really developing these skills. So I think these are the three areas, and it's really nice to see that ESG focus for CHROs has gone beyond climate change, environment, all of which are really important, but also to looking at the impacts on people and how do you maintain and sustain a very highly productive and engaged workforce in the long run.
Thank you, Sandhya. So we've covered some fascinating ground today, but before we conclude, I do want to ask you both to share what you would say are the top action points that business leaders should take away from this discussion. Jean-Marc?
Yes, well, I would have maybe one message or information for CHRO globally and HR executive team, because in one of our document that we have summarized in our CHRO priorities is the fact that the CHRO should indeed have the skills to deliver on leadership and strategic talent management, but we are looking as well to in those profile into the business acumen and financial acumen. Those two skills are really important to have impact. And what we see as well coming is also their mastery in technology and data management, which is key for them to master, as well as the system thinking. So their capacity to connecting the dots between all the elements and come with key insights to accelerate the business growth. And of course, the other message would be that the CHRO should clearly be part of the management team on the C-suite, and to co-create with the C-suite to deliver. And as I said at the multiple times, to have regular spots at the board to make sure that they understand clearly the HR strategy, that they can also influence this strategy, and that they are a partner to the human capital strategy, and that they can also have some updates regularly. So that we are clearly creating a team on all the priorities we have tackled during this podcast.
Yeah, excellent. Sandhya, anything to add?
Yeah, I just say that, people matter most and they matter even more today. So it's really important that your talent is ready to embrace the new challenges and capture all the new opportunities that your company will encounter. And they need to do it with confidence, with resilience, and with agility. And therefore, you need to provide them with the right skill sets, tool sets, and mindsets, and they will deliver for you. So, to CHROs, I would say this is a great time, as Jean-Marc said. You're in very, very exciting times. This is your time to shine and demonstrate the true value that you can bring to the organization. And there is some amazing work being done. We are seeing a lot of creativity coming out of the HR function. So, power on, keep on course, and invest in your teams, because you can't go it alone. It's lonely at the top. So do invest in developing your teams to make sure that you have the right support that you need to support your CEOs as you pursue those ambitious strategic goals.
Thank you, Sandhya. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Let's Talk Global Business. We'll be back next time with a focus on managing geopolitical risk. But please note that you can find both reports from Sandhya and Jean-Marc on CHRO priorities for their respective regions, as well as listen to the entire catalogue of podcast programming from the conference board by visiting our website, conference-board.org. Thank you, Jean-Marc. Thank you, Sandhya, for sharing your insights with us today, and see you next time.